The Book of Kisses. Cosima's universe seemed very limited during her childhood. It was reduced to the kitchen, a small patio, and the service rooms of the large house where her grandmother worked. Her world expanded dramatically when she managed to slip away from her grandmother's watchful eye and discovered the immense library housed in the heart of the great mansion. It was an impressive room with huge windows that overlooked the backyard and filled the entire space with the intense light of a summer morning. When Cosima first stepped into that sanctuary, she crossed a barrier from which there was no turning back. With immense curiosity and trembling hands, she picked up a striking book that lay open on a wooden table. The volume contained many letters Cosima could not understand and illustrations that, though she could not yet interpret, still had a strong impact on her impressionable mind. A noise behind Cosima made her start, slam the book shut, and hide among the shelves, then slip away, protected through the shadows and the corridors, until she returned to her grandmother's domain. Physically, Cosima was confined to the place where she was born and raised, but finding the passage to the library had opened the doors to a new world, ensuring her life was no longer as limited as before. Despite being barely 10 years old, Cosima's day-to-day was already full of obligations. She had to go with her grandmother to gather firewood, which her grandmother brought wrapped in her white apron and used to cook and heat the big house. She helped cut food for the Lord's meals, and she assisted the maids in preparing beds and cleaning. She never carried out tasks that required her to interact with her grandmother's employers, yet she always dressed in an impeccable uniform of a gray dress, white apron, and matching cap that her grandmother ensured was perfect. Escaping from her obligations and from the strict gaze of her guardian was not easy, but Cosima never got bored trying, and every time she succeeded, she was rewarded with the chance to browse among the thousands of pages that made up the library. Once her grandmother lay down to sleep, it was the perfect opportunity for the little girl to dive into the thousands of books. She did not understand much of what she saw, but the images in the numerous volumes were so striking that they took her to distant and colorful lands. Her only regret was that she was never able to find that first book that had left her fascinated. Her disappointment was short-lived, as too many wonderful worlds coexisted in that place, capturing all her attention. Traveling among the volumes that rested on the shelves, she journeyed through vast jungles, the most dangerous forbidden markets, dusty lands, and grand royal dances, among many other adventures. Her explorations were solo until one night, when she was enjoying a snowy land, everything changed. She was sitting on a soft gray rug, her nose buried in a large book and lit by a single candle. Wearing her white nightgown and a gray shawl over her shoulders, her blonde hair fell loose down her back when a hand touched her. She suppressed the urge to scream and saw a boy who appeared to be a bit younger standing behind her. He asked her not to be scared, assuring her that he wouldn't hurt her. When Cosima was calm, he introduced himself as Jean and took an interest in what she was reading. Embarrassed, Cosima admitted that she could not read, and that she only enjoyed looking at the figures. Jean reassured her that there was nothing wrong with not knowing how to read, and that if she was interested, he could teach her himself. Cosima had no idea what learning to read could mean to her, but her curiosity was so great that she agreed without hesitation, without even knowing who Jean was or where he had come from. There were so many possibilities. He could be a gentleman of the house, the son of the groom or the gardener, or even a ghost. None of this changed the fact that he was giving Cosima the chance to enter the most forbidden and secret realms that her lack of reading had made inaccessible to her. She would have liked to ask about his identity, but she didn't want to risk making him uncomfortable, causing him to withdraw his offer. From that night on, secret excursions to the library took on a new meaning for Cosima. The journeys through the books, guided by Jean's hand, revealed uncharted paths that unfolded before Cosima's astonished eyes. It wasn't an easy process. Giving meaning to the scribbles that had previously been unintelligible symbols was more complicated than she had thought at first. Yet, the magic of the surprising images the phrases created in her mind was worth any effort. Despite being very young, Jean was the perfect teacher. Patient and cheerful, he took on the responsibility of choosing the best books for Cosima to practice with. Soon after, the girl no longer needed Jean's help, and they became reading companions, sharing the large gray rug and the warmth of the fire, spending long periods concentrating on their respective books. Good luck seemed to accompany Cosima on her nocturnal excursions. The years went by, and the girl became a young woman and an official servant of the house. No one ever discovered her visits to the library, which had become less frequent. The work was getting harder, and by nightfall she grew increasingly tired. No matter how exhausted she was, the thrill of exploring the secret worlds of books and the pleasure of Jean's company were too intense for her to leave behind. There was also something else that kept bringing her back to the library ever since the day she first discovered it. The magnificent book that she had never seen since haunted her. Cosima walked from one side of the library to the other before Jean's amused look, who asked her if the books there were not enough for her. At Cosima's insistence, Jean gave in to the power of her words and helped her look for what she wanted to find. Walking among the shelves full of books, with her face buried in the pages of the volumes they were both investigating on the table, Cosima began to notice that although the books continued to fascinate her as on the first day, looking at Jean's face was becoming something more interesting every day. And at times, it came to overshadow the beauty of the stories hidden within. She couldn't be sure, but the way Jean looked at her made her think he felt the same way. One summer morning, the sun had surprised them in the library, immersed in the search for the mysterious book, caught up in fleeting glances and light touches. The two youngsters had lost track of time and made a mess in their search. They intended to put everything in its place when, upon lifting one of the volumes that Cosima had been investigating, she was surprised to discover that the book she had been searching for was there. Excited, she called Jean to come and see it. Looking at the cover, this time she could see the title that read, "The Book of Kisses." Spellbound, Cosima began to leaf through the volume and discovered different stories from remote places and past, forgotten times, that narrated tales of the most exultant and memorable kisses. The enchantment broke when she felt Jean's hand on hers as he tried to turn one of the pages of the book. Cosima's eyes wandered from their intertwined fingers to the boy's face and finally settled on his mouth. At that moment, the borders between the real world and the book shattered, broke into 1,000 pieces, and a unique bond was created. With their hands still touching the pages, Jean brought his face close to Cosima's and planted an innocent kiss on her lips that caused the girl's world to shake and made her wonder if she was still part of the real world or if she had entered that volume to become one more story in the Book of Kisses.